Hey, Nerf Herders, I'm Addy Thomas.
And I am Ben Milton.
Thanks for joining us for Certain Point of View News and Reviews. We got another episode for you guys today. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different things today. We got some details for Lord of the Rings. We got some rumors for Fantastic Four that are completely baseless. Some updates from Zack Snyder on Batman vs. Superman. Got some other stuff, too, around the Nerdverse. We also got the Solo trailer to talk about and a roundup of some of our current comic TV shows like Arrow, Black Lightning, Legends of Tomorrow, The Walking Dead, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and all of that is on today's episode. And we're going to get to it in just a second, but I would just want to remind you that you can go to our website, certainpov.com, and check out all the podcasts that are part of the Certain Point of View network. We've not only got Certain Point of View news and reviews, we've also got the Scruffy Nerf Herders, a Star Wars D20 story, where you can follow our Dungeons & Dragons style adventure through the Star Wars universe with Ben and myself and Case. Then we've got Case's Another Pass, where we revisit movies and tweak them a little bit. And then the newest member of the family is Fun and Games with Matt and Jeff, which is a video gaming podcast, all a part of Certain Point of View. You can find all of those podcasts, certainpov.com, rate, review, and subscribe to all of them. Let's get moving. So let's see. If you follow LucasFilm story groups, Pablo Hidalgo on Twitter, you'll notice he's often the target of, well, a lot of arguments from people who did not like The Last Jedi. He will often smack down those arguments, show precedent or the rationale for some of Rian Johnson and Lucasfilm's decisions on that divisive move. And so it's always kind of entertaining to take a look at some of those tweets and some of the discussions and some of the arguments that come up. Ben, you actually came across a particularly interesting tweet that he said to somebody who kind of got a little attitude with him about how he was responding and calling him snarky, if anything.
This is the greatest response to trolling I've ever heard, for fanboy trolling especially. And this is it. Ready? Quote, "Here's the thing. I ain't one to take anyone's right to a hate boner about anything. Get it hard and veiny. Throb with rage. But if you're adding your way onto my timeline, that means we're on the same bus, and if you start rubbing it on my leg, I'll ask to change seats." Close quote. It's the greatest quote of all time. I love this guy. He had a funny one the other day, too, about how people always put an L in Hidalgo, and it's Hidalgo like the movie. And yeah. He's like, I don't understand. Like, there was a movie about this name, and you still can't get my name right. Like, he's hilarious. If you don't follow Pablo, do so. It's a joy. It really is. Unless you hated The Last Jedi, you may not be a big fan of Pablo. But otherwise, he's hilarious. I'm a big fan of his Twitter.
Well, actress Allison Mack is now in the authorities' sights over her alleged role as a recruiter for a sex cult following the arrest of co-founder Keith Rainier. According to one report, Mack, who played Clark Kent's love interest Chloe Sullivan in CW series Smallville, has been allegedly named a co-conspirator in the case. The group's former publicist Frank Parlato has claimed Mack, who is about 34 right now, will face sex trafficking charges after working alongside former co-star, Emmy Award-winning actress Kristen Cruick to recruit other women into the cult. Parlato says Allison was used, as was Kristen, to lure other women because of their celebrity status. According to the complaint, Rainier said, known within the group as Vanguard, they oversaw a barbaric system in which women were told the best way to advance was to become a slave overseen by masters.
This is the craziest thing I have ever heard. This is insane. Like, this is something out of a movie, right? Like,
well, this makes Scientology look tame.
Right. You're talking about an S&M cult that is like just snatching people off the street and forcing them to be sex slaves, but using a famous actress as like the point person to make to get clientele and to get people interested in this thing. It's something like, wasn't this basically the premise for Eyes Wide Shut? I mean, like, this is insane. This is unbelievable that this happened, and it's, you know, like, when I read the article, I was like, what is this? Like, this has got to be fake news. This has to be fake. No, it's actually on multiple sources. Crazy. It's crazy. How do you get caught up? Like, how do you imagine your life what has to happen to you, Addy, for you to get caught up in an S&M sex cult?
I feel like, I mean, and I have no idea what mentally motivates someone to be a part of that kind of cult, but I mean, I guess for any cult, it comes out of wanting to be part of something and not finding that place in conventional areas, I guess. So, I mean, it feels like it's an extreme personal lack, terrible self-image. Like, that's the only way I can imagine that. Like, I can't imagine, I mean, I guess it's also like a ridiculous, maybe she's getting a ridiculous amount of money, but it doesn't feel like that though, you know? So I don't know. This just feels like there's something really lacking in you to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, for me, all they would have to do is ask, and I would totally do it.
Of course. You are a pretty depraved individual. And you need help.
You know, here's the thing. I'm an anti-monk. Like, I seek God not by cutting myself off from the world, but by doing the exact opposite and diving in and trying to experience as much as possible.
So during a new interview, A Quiet Place director and star John Krasinski was asked if he'd had any interest in playing Reed Richards in a Fantastic Four reboot alongside real-life wife Emily Blunt as Sue Storm.
Oh.
And while chatting with Screen Rant about his critically acclaimed horror flick, the one-time Captain America contender was asked if he still had any interest in the superhero genre. And, of course, it came up with Fantastic Four. So this seems like kind of a fantasy pick. What do you think of Krasinski and Blunt as Reed and Sue Richards?
I like John. I don't know her work as well. I mean, and I really only know John's work from The Office, right?
Yeah.
And much. Jim Halpert is a very different character than Reed Richards.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did you ever watch Zero Dark 30?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Was he good?
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
He was good. He's showing. I'm kind of excited for his Jack Ryan series that's coming up on Amazon.
It looks really
year.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's showing that he's got some, other acting skill as well. I think I remember watching a movie. Yeah, Leatherheads. He was in that. He was pretty good in that.
Okay.
It was like an old school football movie. I think.
Oh yeah, vaguely. Wasn't Clooney in that?
Yeah, I think Clooney directed it, if I remember.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that movie coming and going. But I haven't seen. So I did see their Omaze commercial that they did together, which was very funny. They have great chemistry together. I mean, considering that Marvel tends to like to have a lot of snark and a lot of humor in there, having a guy like Krasinski who actually has some really good comedic chops might make for a good Reed Richards.
Yeah, he definitely fits the Marvel style guide almost. I'm not sure about Reed Richards. It would have to be a little bit of a different Reed Richards, a reinterpretation, I think.
Like a personable Reed Richards.
Right. I mean, and who knows? I mean, Krasinski probably could do, a little bit more detached Reed Richards, as well. Like, I'm sure he has the skill to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, I think it'd be interesting. I mean, I know Emily Blunt has done a lot of action. She was really good in Edge of Tomorrow. She's coming up as Mary Poppins later on this year. So, I'd be I'd be down.
You're down for it? You're 100% in on that? Or can you think of anybody who you would cast over them?
I guess here's the difficulty, because it is very different from the typical Reed Richards. So Krasinski stands out because he does have some charisma, and I think that's something that might be needed for the Fantastic Four, because the Fantastic Four is also a celebrity team. Like, they are, in a world where the X-Men are hated, they are, alongside the Avengers, sort of a celebrity team up that people like. Despite the fact that Reed Richards is a super scientist and a bit of a detached person.
He's Elon Musk for all intents purposes.
Right, and I can see Krasinski playing an Elon Musk type. So I think it'd be that kind of interpretation. But if you were going to go for a standard interpretation, you want more nerdy scientist and, almost socially a little bit handicapped. So it's it's different. It feels like such a fresh idea. I think it's also like it's interesting because, famously, Krasinski got pretty far into potentially being Captain America. Like he was a contender long into the process. It was sort of a last minute switch to Chris Evans. So, like. It would be kind of cool to see him, make it into the MCU. He's, sort of cut from the same cloth. You have Chris Pratt, coming from Parks and Rec. So it's kind of like they've definitely got like sort of that lovable goofball type of thing that I think people would gravitate towards.
Yeah, and it may be just the right interpretation to make the Fantastic Four likable in today's modern society and a modern take of like, oh, I actually do like this team again, where they've had a couple feature films that have not gone well. So maybe giving Reed a little bit more of a personality that's relatable and playful might be a good thing for the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I'd also, my thoughts on the Fantastic Four is I would also like them to be sort of a team out of time, kind of the way Cap is, and I think that, especially with the Skrulls being introduced in Captain Marvel, I think it'd be kind of cool if the Fantastic Four have been, kidnapped, and they've been absent from this timeline because they've been kidnapped by the Skrulls all this time. And so you bring them back, and let's say they were here in the 60s, maybe even introduce them with sort of a period 60s superhero-style movie, I think might be an interesting move for the MCU that might make the Fantastic Four a little bit different because they are sort of a relic of a different time in comics and kind of adapt them the way that they've done with Cap. And it's sort of an interesting idea of a family dynamic in the 60s and then taking that dynamic and putting them in modern times. I think can create some interesting stories for the Fantastic Four on a personal character level, outside of all the super science and all of the other things that make the Fantastic Four interesting as well. So we have some more details on Amazon's adventure into Middle-earth. So back on November 13th, Amazon Studios beat out Netflix for a $250 million rights deal with the Tolkien estate, publisher HarperCollins and New Line Cinema, and now we have found out that includes a 5-season commitment to bring The Lord of the Rings to the small screen. Now where this gets a little bit more hazy is, before we heard it was a Lord of the Rings... it was in the Lord of the Rings universe. It was in Middle-earth, in Tolkien's universe, not necessarily Lord of the Rings. This seems to say that we're going to get a straight Lord of the Rings adaptation and a spin-off. So Amazon must be in production within 2 years according to the terms of the pact. When production expenses like casting, producers, and visual effects are factored in, the series is expected to cost north of $1 billion, which is going to be the most expensive TV show ever produced. And this is part of Bezos' sort of directive last year to bring in a sort of Game of Thrones type franchise. And Bezos is a huge Lord of the Rings fan too, so it kind of made sense that he would go toe-to-toe with Netflix and win this deal.
That is an astronomical amount of money.
How do you make that money back with this series? That's what I want to know.
That's a great question. And my follow-up to that is... What story are you telling that we haven't already seen that is going to make that up again? You know what I mean?
Yeah, not just that, but it sounds like they're talking Lord of the Rings, like an actual Lord of the Rings adaptation, and then a spin-off on top of that. So it's going to be about 20 years. By the time this comes out, it'll be about 20 years since the first Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Am I that old? Holy God, seriously?
Well, it was 2001 when the first one came out.
Oh my God, I am that old. All right, well, this has been a disappointing episode for me. All right, I guess it is time. I guess there's a lot of people who haven't seen this story told recently, and
see, that's what I'm not sure of though.
20 years is a long time, Addy. That's an entire generation hasn't seen this.
Is. Maybe
just because you've watched it 17 times, all extended versions. Most people haven't done that.
Sir, not 17. I've watched it at least 57.
I'm sorry. I did not mean to step on your nerd cred, sir. I apologize.
Give me some credit here. That doesn't count the times I just listened to it.
Fair enough. Fair. Plus Reddit.
Right.
Yeah. No, this is yeah, I guess it's time. I guess this makes sense. And I mean, this is such a quintessential part of nerd culture. Like, it's sort of it's one of like the major cornerstones that all of nerd culture can kind of agree. Like, oh yeah,
right.
Lord of the Rings is a big deal. Star Wars is a big deal. Star Trek is a big deal.
So here's the thing, and Star Trek might not apply to this, but when we talk about remakes and reboots, a lot of the times we've talked, obviously Spider-Man is one of the quickest reboots ever, like, and it's happened twice since 2001. So I think that one doesn't quite, that argument's a little bit different, because even though it's been rebooted, and yes, we have seen Uncle Ben in 2 of those 3 reboots, we have had different villains in just about every one of those. There've been a little bit of crossover, but there's a lot that hasn't been mined yet, and is still yet to be mined, and probably will never truly ever be mined in Spider-Man storytelling on the big screen.
Right.
As far as what's available.
Right.
Star Wars, we've had, obviously at 99 to 2005, we had a brand new trilogy with the prequels, and now we're in the sequel trilogy and doing the spin-offs, and all of those are covering things that we haven't had, like a straight reboot of, like, we haven't had the original trilogy remade, which is something, like, I think that's an interesting idea, like, if that's ever, when do you do that, if you ever do that,
right? Yeah.
So it's
apparently by my math, every 20 years.
Right. So there should have been one, like, back in the 90s.
I mean, and we kind of did get that with the prequels, and now we're getting it, and now we're getting the new movies, and it's a retelling of the same story, sort of. Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I see where you're going with that. But the problem is like with Tolkien, like, well, I guess like you said, we're getting the familiar story retold, and then a spin-off series, right?
Right.
Okay,
right.
So that means, like, we are going to be getting some new stuff, if you will, out of this, and we'll have to see.
I'm expecting, like, Fall of Numenor or something like that is what I think is the most compelling story you can tell.
I was hoping it was going to be like Hobbits Gone Wild or something like that.
You got the Battle of the Green Fields. I think it's the closest you get to Hobbits Gone Wild.
I'll take it at this point. Yeah, I'll take what I can get. I mean, like, that's the question. Are they gonna give us, like, stuff that, kind of more obscure stuff like that, or are they gonna write actual new things?
Right. Yeah, I'm expecting a much more fleshed out version of Lord of the Rings, with an actual Tom Bombadil appearance.
Oh my God, I will squee. I will
be
squee.
So happy. But I mean, there's a lot of room. Like, you can have the Rangers of the North show up. You can do the Army of the Dead a little bit more.
For sure, yeah.
You also have the bigger politics of the War of the Ring, because even though you follow Lord of the Rings, there's a lot that's happening in that world at the same time. Like, there's some major battles that the dwarves have. Like up in the north, you have the fights in Lothlorien. Like, there's a lot more phases, and you can sort of develop the different kingdoms that have kind of fallen apart. Like, Game of Thrones style has been the sort of the tagline that's kind of gone with this.
Right.
So if you really,
but even that though, like when you compare it to the book, like, here's my fear for people who are super fans of the books, like.
Yeah.
You're still not going to get what you got in the books. Like, Game of Thrones is not nearly as comprehensive as the Fire and Ice novels. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot that's skipped. There's a lot that's changed. You're still not going to get that true retelling that Tolkien nerds really seem to obsess over with these books.
Which, as someone who's a little bit more okay with, like, the process of adaptation, because I still love the Peter Jackson movies despite certain things that I really love about Tolkien not making it into it. I understand, like, you got decisions to make. Either you got to make certain cuts, you have to streamline certain stories. So it didn't make sense for the Rangers to show up, to suddenly explain, like, hey, here are some other guys that are just like Aragorn. Like, you didn't have time to establish all of that. As much as I like that, I like, looking back on it, I would have liked if they went with, like, that, was it the Mockingjay and Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows model of splitting the last book into 2 movies. I think that would have worked better for Return of the King.
Yeah.
But, that being said, like, I also understand why the Scouring of the Shire doesn't work in the movie. Like, it's one of my favorite parts of the story, but it just, I just think it just doesn't work for the movie. It may work for a TV series, where you can delve into those characters a little bit more, so those character moments have more meaning, and you can still have that little bit of an extra bit of the epilogue to add on to that.
My only request for this series is that they explain and talk about why the Eagles don't just fly everybody right there.
Well, I hear you can establish the Eagles as a little bit more detached, or you could actually play a clip from, was it American Chopper, and have them explain the Eagles.
I love that. I love that meme. It's so funny. Oh my god, that's such a funny
that
meme.
Is so me whenever people mention, like, what are the Eagles?
They're not an Uber.
They are a proud, dignified race that doesn't just answer to your calls.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, I hope we get a moment like that. That would be the best. That would be the best. That'd be worth however many $1 billion they cost them to make this stupid thing.
Well, in time for Easter, a new religious symbol has been unearthed in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, courtesy of director Zack Snyder himself. On social media platform Vero, the DC movie director revealed that the kryptonite spear used by the Dark Knight in Dawn of Justice was in fact meant to be a reference to the death of Jesus. He posted the picture of a painting rendering the famous Catholic scene of a crucified... Oh, the eye rolling from Ben is amazing, because I felt the same way.
Oh.
He rendered the famous Catholic scene of a crucified Jesus getting stabbed by the Roman centurion Longinus. Snyder wrote, why, with all the technology at his disposal, would Batman build a spear? And here is why. So, and this is one of many, like, I chose this one.
You
I
cherry-picked this one. Okay.
But there's lots of different ones he's been explaining. All of them feel pretty unsatisfying to me. I haven't seen him explain Martha just yet, which is the big one. Mm-hmm. But all of these, like, all right, like, I'm a little torn on this one just because I do like religious imagery.
Yeah. You would think, like, you and I would totally be like, oh, cool, this makes sense.
But here's the problem I have with it is because
Batman sucks.
Well, Superman sucks, yes. But then, like, this was also sort of the problem with Man of Steel, whereas he was making the Christ comparison constantly in that movie, but without really earning that comparison.
Yeah.
I've always had a problem with the Christ comparison with Superman, and not from a holiness or a religious like a sanctity type of argument position, but more because it's not the same story. Like, there's one guy who sort of sacrifices his divinity and his invulnerability to become like humanity, and then you have one person who is a superhuman who can't really be hurt and can hear and defeat everything.
Yeah,
and never
sacrifices. Yeah, there's no sacrifice made by Superman. Yeah.
Yeah, and because the sacrifice that happens in Batman vs. Superman is just dumb when you have Wonder Woman there who can handle the spear. Like, that's not like, there's lots of nerdy nitpicks, and I get it for Last Jedi haters, like, you guys have lots of different things you don't like about the movie, but this is one that, like, while watching the movie, I felt like, what's going on here? Among many other problems with that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did Zack say to justify these decisions?
Oh, he's just been explaining in different posts. Like, this is the only one I really, like, paid attention to, just because it just meshed so well with his Man of Steel imagery.
Yeah.
But there's a lot. So if you ever want to sign up for Vero and follow Zack Snyder, there's lots that he's posting on there if you're really interested in seeing his explanation of it.
Yeah, I may check that out. I'd be curious. I like Zack. I like Zack's imagery. I don't like his DC, his version of the DC universe. I'm not a fan of. I mean, I thought he made some brave and bold choices. They weren't choices that resonated with me. A lot of people really do like it, and a lot of people don't. But
and I think the thing is he loves Frank Miller a lot, and I like Frank Miller a lot too. I still think, like, I know Frank Miller is sort of divisive now, but I think there's a lot of interesting ideas that have come from Frank Miller. Frank Miller's stories, and I think Snyder is great at bringing a lot of those ideas to film. I think the problem is that's the only version that he seems to like, and it's fine that this is a version of Batman in the DC universe, but it's not the version that I want to be stuck in. Like, it's fine for, you know, a one-off here and there. Like the Dark Knight Returns really is great as a one-off. I don't like it as an in-continuity DC story, is the way I feel.
Yeah, but I mean, isn't that kind of what you got out of Nolan too? Like everybody from Nolan forward has taken like the DC universe as like this dark, you know, put it in a Dark Knight-ish type universe where everything is super serious and super gray, and even the colors are all muted out, and everything is dark and stormy and grimy.
Absolutely. And it was fine the first time. I need you to move on.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, so you're just you were fine with it for the Nolan verse, and then you were ready for it. Let's get a new interpretation.
Which, by the same token, I'm down for the gritty version of Daredevil that we've been getting on Netflix, and for Jessica Jones, and for Luke Cage. So it's not that that isn't a way to tell stories, but it isn't the only way. And here's the thing: when you tell a story that's a little bit more gritty and serious, I think there's a little bit more burden on you to make your story compelling. Whereas sometimes humor can lowers your defenses. That's just, you know, like, that's sort of basic psychology. Like,
right. If I'm laughing, I'm having a good time. I'm more forgiving of plots that may not be quite as strong. As long as I spent my $15 to go have this escapist fun time. But if you're not going to give me the fun time, then
and that isn't to take away any of the depth that's present in fun storytelling as well. Like, that doesn't necessarily
right. The two aren't mutually
it.
Exclusive. Right.
Right, but when it comes to serious, when you have a serious tone, you do have to work a little bit harder, I think, to be a little bit more compelling. That's just my opinion.
Right, because you don't have the ability to just use humor to mask over certain things or keep the plot moving for whatever reason. Yeah, I agree. I think. I don't think that I'm tired of that version of Batman per se, as much as I am not as forgiving of weak script writing and directing. Yeah. I think that version of Batman's totally fine, and I'm even okay with like kind of a more grumpy and kind of semi-depressed Superman. And that I don't mind that retelling of that character. I like retelling of characters. I like reimaging of characters. I think that's kind of a fun thing to play with. But it's just got to be good storytelling, and that's what we haven't gotten yet.
Right. So with Gillian Anderson exiting American Gods, co-star Kristen Chenoweth is in limbo now with the show, and a new showrunner in the mix. There's a lot up in the air for American Gods Season 2, but a new report at TV Line has some very intriguing information as to how the Neil Gaiman adapted series will deal with Anderson's absence. They'll do it, supposedly, the rumor is at this point, by adding another media-type role with a very specific focus. The new character will reportedly be called New Media. Stars didn't comment for TV Line story, but the news seems to suggest that the network is looking to have this new version of the god be a metaphor for the latter-day phenomenon of social media, and the show is apparently aiming to cast an Asian woman in her 20s as the new character. While Anderson's media was the embodiment of authored content like movies and TV, New Media would act as an entity empowered by engagement on networks like Twitter and Facebook.
Disappointing. On a lot of levels. Really? Gillian Anderson's media, I thought, was a really cool character, and a really cool introduction of a new god. Like, I'd like to see that play out. And New Media just kind of like is an extension of that in my mind. Like, it's like you're already killing a new god and replacing it with a newer god, which I guess you can do.
So, and now, granted, this is without watching the series and just hearing from your interpretation of it. Well, one, I know how much you like Gillian Anderson, so I know that.
Well, I do. I'm a huge fan of hers, but her role in this series was really, really cool. Like, they did some really cool stuff with that character.
Well, I like the idea of, like, all right, well, first off, you're losing her, so that's unfortunately the
you got to move
case.
on, right?
Yeah, but I like the idea of new media, especially in this environment that we're in right now.
Yeah,
with new media and how different it is from sort of the traditional world of media and sort of what that's done to how we interact with each other. I think does present an interesting new premise to deal with in this series and updates the series to very modern times.
Yeah, I felt like they were already kind of doing that in the show. We'll see how it's done. It's not like I'm out on this show at all. I'm definitely giving season 2 a strong look and a good chance to keep my interest, and I really hope it does. Losing Kristen Chenoweth would be another huge blow to that show. She was fantastic. I mean, this show just doesn't seem to be well fated. I have a feeling like this is probably going to be its last. I just suspect this is going to be its last season. I think it's just a little too weird, a little too pushing boundaries, especially with like the middle of the country, like isn't going to really embrace this type of show where you have like Jesus and all these gods running around the planet. And
do you think even the coasts aren't quite as into this series as well? Because I feel like this is sort of in a weird in between that you and I are sort of living.
Yeah, I think so. I think that this has this is a really niche show. And I mean, it's on Stars, so who knows what their benchmark is as far as like what a successful show is. Maybe a couple million viewers is enough for them to want to do it, but it seems like a really expensive show to produce. Right. And you lost Gaiman on this. You're losing your original showrunners. It doesn't feel like it's gonna make it.
Well, that's it for today's news. Let's talk about the brand new Solo trailer.
Wow.
What do you... I really like this trailer.
I considered briefly, actually not briefly, like I just watched a couple hours ago, to be perfectly honest with you.
Oh, yeah?
I kind of didn't want to see it. I kind of wanted to go into the movie like eyes wide open of like I have no idea what to expect. I don't really like. I've seen the original trailer, which was just a clips. Who knows what this movie's really about? But here's stuff that we know you like, kind of a thing. And I still don't really know what the movie is totally about. It looks like a heist movie. It looks like.
Yeah. This one felt a little bit more exciting and more fun. So, at least for me, like there was a little bit more of Alden Ehrenreich in it, so I felt a little bit more like, okay, all right. Like, I mean, I wasn't crazy. I notoriously was not crazy about the first one.
Yeah.
First time around. But he's warmed up to me, so I'm like, all right, I'm accepting. Like, this is not sort of my expectation for Han Solo, but let's see how he works within it. I've always said that I kind of would have preferred a Lando movie, but I think this is where we're gonna get that. So
yeah.
I do feel a little bit more excited about it. Although that Avengers hype is growing.
It's real.
Very, very
it's real.
fast.
The Avengers hype is real, and it's going to be difficult to I mean, we'll see how Avengers goes because it comes out first, and then we have 2 weeks, and then Solo.
No, we got like a month.
We have a month.
So
we have 2 weeks, and then
got...
Deadpool, and then 2 weeks, and then Solo. So
exactly.
It's going to be a crazy May. It is going to be a crazy, crazy May.
Well, here's another interesting thing to throw into the mix here, and I think that it's obvious it's going to have to get pulled from theaters before then. But right now, Black Panther is still going pretty strong. Like it is, I think it's the third highest domestic.
As soon as Avengers comes out, that movie's going away.
It has to, right?
And,
like,
not because it isn't doing not because it isn't a good movie and the people. It's just going to get overshadowed. Like everything is going to get overshadowed by Avengers. everything.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what's out. It's going to be Avengers. Like, Deadpool 2 is going to struggle.
It is.
Being that close to Avengers. Right? It is going to struggle. Solo is going to feel the effects of Avengers.
It's just funny that, like, Black Panther is doing so well. It's still running since February. Like, most movies today do not have that kind of lifespan. Like, I honestly feel
but what came out in March
to
stop it? Nothing came out in March to give it to make anybody not want to go see it.
Pacific Rim and Ready Player One should, like, normally for most Marvel movies, and here's the thing, this movie has reached far outside the comic book the normal comic book community, which is why those movies didn't stop its run, or at least severely slow it down. So I think it's just crazy, like, how many records it's continuing to break. Apparently
it's fantastic.
Saudi Arabia is going to be, like, they're making it in Saudi Arabia. It's like the first time, like,
a movie is being showed in there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all sorts of crazy.
It's a weird choice for Saudi Arabia to go with, but okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I know. So, all right, let's move on to the TV shows. So, starting off with the CW shows, we have Arrow. We had a little bit of a fight between Oliver and Diggle. They duked it out for a little bit.
Or as I call it, another episode of Arrow. Those two are always fighting with each other. Since season 1.
Get to blows?
Season 1 they came to blows a couple times. Yeah, they did. When he was still Ollie's bodyguard, and Ollie would go sneaking off and stuff like that.
Well, that's a little bit different than for, like, now, like, two really good friends. Like, they threw some pretty dirty, like, jabs at each other too, as far as, like, where they both failed, like, people who died on their watch type of stuff. So it got a little nasty with the two of them. Like, he's really splintering, like, he's completely going on his own, which that's the normal thing for Green Arrow. Is him.
So let me ask you this. So which team are you siding with in this dispute? Are you Team Ollie or are you Team Diggle?
I can see both from a certain point of view.
Oh, I like where you did that. That's good.
But I do fall in Diggle's camp because Ollie is continuing to do the same thing he's done in the entire series. There's been very much that lone wolf who pushes everyone away from him. And there was sort of an interesting sort of reveal about how much he is sort of addicted to being the Green Arrow. And it's not just a matter of saving the city, that there is something that he gets off on being the Green Arrow.
Oh, okay.
So that was sort of an interesting little wrinkle to this particular episode. But I'm ready for the show to end. I really am ready for the show to end. There was a little bit of news that came out. Apparently, the actor who plays Roy is going to be a series regular next season.
Yeah.
And that means Thea is coming back. So whatever they did with Thea is already like a setup for next season. Which I was like, I'm fine with Thea coming back, but what was most discouraging from that news was that
the show was coming back.
7.
That's so funny.
Yeah, I was like, oh, do we really need a season 7 of Green Arrow, guys? Like, let's wrap it up. Like, you guys have gone pretty far. I think you can applaud just what you've done, but let's just do something new, guys. Like, you got Black Lightning, you got Legends of Tomorrow.
It's still doing well in the ratings, man. It's still people still watch it. People like you still watch it. They're gonna keep making it until people stop watching it, man.
Well, and that's what we've talked about some changes that are coming up on the podcast soon, but I will say that after this season, I will not be watching week to week. I will be waiting till the series, each season is over, and then watching them on Netflix instead of the week to week. So. Arrow can wrap up. Let's just hope for that. That being said, like, there should be a lot of reasons I would like this season. It's just too little, too late, as we've said all season long. So, Black Lightning, we had sort of a stereotypical episode that you expect of superhero shows, where your hero is arrested, but then they're vindicated, so their identity is cleared up. But I thought this was done well. It didn't feel too ordinary or too repetitive in those ways. Yeah,
like nothing groundbreaking occurred, nothing real exciting happened. It was an episode. It was maybe the weakest episode of the season so far, but it wasn't a bad episode by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it's a little weird seeing like lightning and thunder like running in the streets the way they do. Like, you feel like they should be pretty easy to stop, right?
A sniper solves every superhero problem ever.
That's fair. Well, Legends of Tomorrow, we had an episode that when it started, I was not crazy about this episode. I did really enjoy it as it got past that first like 15 minutes, or I think it was really only 7 minutes, but it felt long. Because it started off with the rescue of Barack Obama from Grodd, who made a "Make America Grodd Again" joke.
Ugh.
And I like it's not just about Obama and about Trump, but like I don't need you like, it's fine if you comment on certain things that are socially relevant, but that is such a direct like
it was sloppy. It was just lazy. Like, it was so patently lazy and stupid that it wasn't entertaining to me. It was just like, okay, I get it. You got a political axe to grind in this episode. Go ahead and grind it. It wasn't even as mildly entertaining as like the Twitter war between Jimmy Kimmel and Sean Hannity was. Like, it was, and that was just inane. This was bad. I did not enjoy it, and it's not because either one of us are huge Trump fans. Like, neither one of us like Trump, I don't think.
Yeah. No, not at all.
Not at all. It's just like, the only thing I did laugh when they did the "Run Barry Run" joke. Like, I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
That was that was a good callback. That was a good callback. Like, that was funny. Like, okay,
but I still groaned a little bit at that. I was just.
Well, it's because it was surrounded by all this other, like, just fawning over Obama, and it's not to make the show political, but it's my problem with this team ideological thing that goes on with people, whether it's Republican, Democrat, Last Jedi haters, Last Jedi lovers. Is
the tribalism of it.
The tribalism of it is you're unable to see the criticism and see the faults, from your side, right?
And because you experience this just as much on the right as
for
as
sure,
I feel on the left,
sure. There's some people that if you criticize Trump, like, they have a million excuses for why this guy walks on water and can do no wrong, and you have people on the left that are the same way about Obama, and I'm like, he wasn't a perfect president. He made a lot of mistakes. Like, let's not glorify this guy and that's what I feel like that type of thing does, and I'm just, that doesn't interest me at all.
Yeah. Well, it takes me so far out of the fun I get from Legends of Tomorrow.
Right.
The inane fun that I get from that show. So, but fortunately, it course corrected pretty quickly for me, because then they went with they went for something pretty ridiculous, and they happened to have Mick watching Lord of the Rings.
So funny. So funny.
And they time travel to the filming of Lord of the Rings to get John Noble to record some lines for them to pretend to be Mollis, so that Adam can jump into Nora Dark's ear, play these clips, and they can convince her to get to a particular spot for them to trap her. So it's a super convoluted plot, but it involves a little bit of a Lord of the Rings reference. I was like, okay, this is what I want from my Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
We had more Damien Dark. We had a sort of a betrayal that's expected, but it was still fun. And you got Mollis unleashed.
Full on mollusk. Yeah, I love Damien Dark. Like, this show should just be about him. Everybody else is just like there to let him shine. He's so good. He's so good. I hope next season he's on.
I kind of hope so. We do know that Constantine will be a regular for next season.
Okay.
And that they are planning to go much more mystical and Dungeons and Dragons-y is what they've said for the tone of next season.
Great.
So I'm excited about next season. Even before we wrap up, we got one more episode for Legends of Tomorrow. We have the season finale coming up this week. So, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So we had I thought this was an okay episode. We had Absorbing Man helped Coulson and Talbot escape. Their Hydra captors. We also had our little group of the Invincibles do some weird, crazy stuff because they think they can't be killed because of certain results they see in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you think?
Wrap this show up. Wrap this season up already for me. Like, I'm losing interest quickly in this season, and I didn't think I would. I thought I would be. As things like became more more revealed, and as we were getting closer to the end, I'd be more and more excited about it. And now I'm just like, I'm glad that there's not likely going to be another season of this show. I've enjoyed immensely this show. I think it's been a really, really fun ride for the most part. A weak season here or there, but overall, I really, really enjoyed the show. But right now, like, it's just checking off boxes of like, hey, whose story haven't we wrapped up, and we're just kind of like going through the motions.
I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that they're well. So here's the thing. That was one of those criticisms for Lost, like the way they handled the children on Lost.
Yeah.
Like Gravitron coming back and being important at this point is sort of an interesting thing that they're doing, and it does really feel like they're coming full circle. Like, we did get to see that little clip, the post-credit scene where
Raina.
With Raina and what happened to that one guy who's been missing for a while.
Yeah.
So that was connected with Gravitron. So it was. I did appreciate that. There's a lot I like, but I just needed to get moving.
Yeah, I just needed to wrap up, and it really just feels like it feels like season 1, where they're like, we want to wrap it up, but we got like 9 episodes until we get to Infinity War, and we just got to kind of stretch it out till then.
I really feel this is going to connect in a big way with Infinity War, and I'm thinking. So my thought is that this is actually going to connect in, maybe not like, maybe yes, Thanos comes and breaks the world it may be part of it, but I actually think this might connect in a little bit different of a way, especially now that we know Clark Gregg is going to be on Ms. Marvel. I think this might connect with, or Captain Marvel. I think this will connect with Captain Marvel and sort of whatever is going to bridge Avengers 3 and 4, and sort of how they're able to, like, whatever happens at the end of Infinity War, whatever they have to do to fix the events of Infinity War they're probably going to have something that they've been working on here in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. that's going to be like, and let's hand it off to the Avengers, the way they did in Age of Ultron,
Right, where they can say it is all connected without having any of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actually in a movie.
Well, Clark Gregg's going to be in.
Well, yeah, he's going to be in.
Marvel.
Yeah, but he's not going to be in the either of the Avengers movies, is he?
Probably not. Although, who knows? Maybe it's a secret that we haven't. Like, that's one of those. Like, they've been pretty good at keeping a lot of things locked down for a long time.
Yeah.
With these movies, I mean, we still don't know what the title for Avengers 4 is yet.
And we still don't know what Hawkeye's going to do in this movie either. We know he's in it.
And apparently Samuel L. Jackson's in it too, and they've kept that tight-lipped as well. Because apparently I saw something today about, like, even though Samuel L. Jackson isn't showing up in the credits yet, there is, like, the stand-in for Samuel L. Jackson's in there, and the assistant to Samuel L. Jackson's has been already credited in there.
Hilarious.
So he's in it.
He's in it somehow.
Yeah, maybe he's in the post-credit scene where he's meeting up with Coulson,
Maybe. I'm just at that point now where I'm just ready for it to be here, be done, wrap this season up. And
I'm just ready for Infinity War at this point.
Yeah, I'm just counting down days at this point. There's nothing I don't think there's anything that's going to be revealed in this season where I'm like, holy shit, like, that's amazing. Yeah. As much as it is like, okay, that was a good wrap-up for this show. Bravo. Well done, team. Looking forward to seeing you all on different shows.
So, wrapping up our TV reviews, we got The Walking Dead. We have one more. We have the finale episode next week, but here is our second to last episode. What did you think of this episode?
It was good. I
loved it.
It was good.
I love this episode.
I'm over it. Like I'm just so over this conflict of, and again, this is another show that takes 8 episodes to do what could be told in 3 or 4.
I think this one I didn't feel like this one wasted time, though. Did you feel this one was a slow episode?
It wasn't a slow episode, but we should have gotten to this point a long time ago.
Okay, that I can't argue with, but I did like the content of this episode a lot.
Yeah,
I liked what they did with Eugene and sort of his interaction with Daryl and Rosita and Father Gabriel, and sort of the way he's sort of a little bit more resolved as a savior now. I loved the stuff with Negan in this episode, and I like the way they bookended the letter to Rick and the letter to Negan from Carl. The way they bookended this episode, too.
Yeah, it was good. I'm ready. Again, this is another season where I'm just ready for it to be over. Like this has been a quagmire. This has been Middle East level quagmire for all out war. This fucking funny? War has gone on and on
for 16
and on.
Episodes.
Oh my god, it should have been done in 4. There's like 100 people max, and they all are armed with submachine guns, and 7 people have died, and none of them that we know. Like, it is the most ridiculous all-out war in history.
I would go for 10 episodes would be more appropriate to The Walking Dead instead of 16. 16 has been too long, not just for this season, but past seasons.
Yeah.
As well. So I see the case for, like, in the way we talk about the Netflix shows, the Marvel Netflix shows, these deserve fewer episodes. But I
get it.
Go
you got bills to pay, and you want to give everybody their screen time, and I get it. But golly, like, as I was watching it, I was like, this is good. Like, this is a good episode. I don't hate this episode. I like what they're doing with the characters, and I like, the deaths and the reveals and stuff like that. But, man, like, overall, this season has just been like, okay, like.
Well, what do you think? Sort of, let's focus in on this episode a little bit more. What do you think of sort of Negan's frame of mind? How he dealt with Simon and how he dealt with Dwight. Like, what do you think of where we are with this right now?
I didn't understand. I thought it was a weird choice for him to give Simon an out and be like, yeah, you know what? I'll meet you face to face. We'll just fight like men with hands, and give Simon that opportunity. That didn't feel very Negan to me.
Oh, really?
No.
I feel that is consistent, because I also think because of the nature of the Saviors, and so that he can stomp out another attempt to revolt, he took this as an opportunity to prove himself again, especially with, like, there being a couple people, like, there clearly are people who were dissatisfied with how he was running the Saviors.
Yeah, but he just killed them all.
Yes, but he not only takes that moment to kill them all, but he also reasserts himself, like, him versus Simon. So anybody who even thought to side with Simon, or may have felt that Simon, the way he handled Simon's crew, might have been validated. Like, he had the opportunity to like really beat Simon down.
That doesn't make any sense, because he just shoots all of Simon's henchmen, right? He in cold blood, and then
think other people would have been inspired by that to be like, oh, we got it, we may need to take.
He still murdered them. He still murdered like 9 people, right? And just because he didn't do it to Simon, they're like, oh, okay, he's all right, he's our guy. That doesn't make sense. Like, if you're inclined to be like, Simon has some good points, maybe like Negan's a little too extreme, or he's not extreme, like, whatever your reasoning being for disliking Negan's leadership. Yeah. Like, he just reaffirmed all that leadership. He didn't change. I don't think he changed anybody's minds by murdering all of his enemies at one time, but one guy who he had a fist fight with and murdered.
Yeah, I guess I view it more as sort of like that natural, like, sort of that, out in the wild, like the way, like, like in a Pride or something, like the way, one animal, like a wolf, would like sort of reassert itself in that natural order. Like, to me, that felt like that kind of thing. So
yeah, but I didn't see. He would use like, he should have just Lucille'd him and just reasserted his, like, you can you're talking about just reasserting your dominance.
Yeah,
like, that's all he's doing is just reasserting his dominance, and he's most dominating when he has that bat, and he's killing people with that bat. That's what he did to get all these other people to line up with him. Like that's how he gets Rick's crew to fall in line. It's like, well, this is what's going to happen. If you cross me, you get the bat. You get hit by Lucille. So to change that seemed out of character to me. It just seemed like an odd choice to me.
I didn't feel it was out of character in any way. I felt like it was. I thought it was consistent with the character, but I mean, like that. But that seems just to be the way the saviors work. But I mean, sure.
It's not like, oh well, screw this show, they completely ruined Negan. To me, I was just like, well, that's weird. Like, I wouldn't do that. Like, if I was Negan, I would just hit him with the bat right then and there. Problem solved. Like, who's next? Like that's been their attitude all the way up to this point. Like, that's in the show, and you have to kind of step back and take your knowledge of the comic books Negan out of this.
No, because I think I already have, because comic Negan would have done what you said. I think this Negan is a whole lot more fleshed out, where he does feel the saviors are legitimately saving people. So, like, because even the way he deals with Eugene is, instead of killing Eugene on the spot in Alexandria, when Rosita tries to kill him, he leaves Rosita alive. He doesn't kill Rosita there. Like, this is a Negan who killed Spencer because Spencer wanted to, sort of betray Rick. He guts him out in the street. Like, there is this twisted sense of honor within him. So, like, I do feel him going, like, going, like
I'll give you a fighting chance. Is like an honor killing.
Yeah, like, that's still, because this is his right-hand man. This is a guy he is dependent on, has earned sort of respect within his community as part of his system. So it feels like, okay, I need to do a little bit more, not just to reassert myself, but to justify why I'm doing this, and how I'm doing this. That's why I felt this was consistent. But I can see, like, from that, like, it isn't efficient by any means.
No, and if you're if you're trying to reassert your dominance, like, then you've got to be dominance. You've it opens up the possibility of, like, well, I'm pretty sure I could take him in a fist fight. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, all right, well, what's stopping me from just beating this guy to death? Like, oh, he's got a bat wrapped in barbed wire, and he will bash your head in, is far more frightening and far more dominating in my mind. And that seems to be, like, also been his MO, like, of doing the most frightening thing. Like, and that's how he establishes dominance. Like, he takes he kills Glenn, and he kills Abraham because they're the it has the most impact on the people there.
Right.
And in the most horrifying way, so that the intent is, my God, he did something so horrifying, I don't ever want to experience that again. I will do whatever he says not to experience that again.
So here's another wrinkle to it, though, because where I do think this is beginning a little bit of a turn for Negan is that there is regret in Negan as he's choking out Simon. Yes, it's still, like, he's still functioning to some extent within his twisted methods, but because of experience with the garbage people, he feels like a regret that, one, he has to kill Simon, and two, that he feels he has to kill everyone at the hilltop. He's resolved to do that, but he doesn't want to do that. I feel like they're already showing
the cracks in the armor.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't love the cracks in the armor.
Oh, really?
I don't love it because I don't feel it's earned. I don't feel like Carl and Negan had enough time together that Negan really gives a shit about this kid.
Yeah.
They were together an episode and a half, I think. Like, and it didn't feel.
And then, another time as well.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it was like a long time for them to really get to know each other, build a relationship, build a friendship where, like, they had an easy understanding. Like, Carl shows up to kill him, and he's like, "Oh, all right, well, cool. Like, this kid's got balls," and then he takes him back to Alexandria. Like,
right.
What? Like, that's all it took for them to have, like, this this relationship where Carl understood him, and it just I get like they extend the show out and made this war really, really long, but yet I feel like they were really ineffective of telling the story and giving Negan and Rick good reasons to end this war.
Yeah.
Like, and that's how it's playing out to me. Like these episodes, and I agree with you saying. Like, I think they're trying to play with that idea of like, well, Negan's feeling regret about what happened with the Heapsters, and now he's upset that he's got to destroy the hilltop, but there wasn't enough. There hasn't been enough there for me to really feel like it's, like you like to say, like it's earned. It feels like it's just, well, that's what we need to do in order to finish up this story.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. So, do you think, like, if they had taken one of the, like, let's say we changed out one of the episodes out of what we've already seen this season, like one of the slow episodes, let's say, with a backstory for Negan episode, do you think that might have?
I don't need a back. I think we have enough. I think we know enough about Negan. I think we need Negan to have more motivate. We needed more Carl and Negan.
Yeah.
We needed more Carl and Negan, and we needed more Carl. And that hurts to say, because I've not been a huge fan of Carl in this show.
Right.
But we needed more of Carl, like Carl's view of the world and what's happening, and his understanding of, oh my, like, this is what my dad's fucking up. Like, I love my dad to death, but he's doing this is what's wrong with what my dad's doing. Oh, like, I have like this odd relationship and this friendship with Negan, and this is why he's right, but he's also wrong in this area, so that he could be that bridge. We don't have that bridge. Like, all we have are these letters, which are well written and interesting, nice hearing Chandler Biggs read them and stuff like that. They're being used well as a device in the storytelling, but there's not enough. We didn't see enough from Carl to understand, like, what drives him to have this worldview.
Yeah.
Other than we have to live on beyond this. Like, there has to be something after the war.
I guess the moment that that worked for me was when he is talking to Negan on the wall at Alexandria.
Right.
And also when Negan is, like, at the season finale last year, before the kingdom comes to attack, like when he's gonna have Rick kill Carl. Yeah. Like, those moments there, I felt were some of those. But I do think you're right. I do think there should have been more outside of those additional two instances. There should have been more Carl and Negan.
In a lot of ways, and I could just be, conspiracy theorying this a little bit, but it feels like they hadn't anticipated getting rid of Carl.
Oh, really?
No, I remember I remember there being reports of, like, his parents being upset, he being upset at the initial reports of, like, oh, hey, you're off the show. Right. And then, like, that kind of got squashed pretty quickly. Like, I feel like something happened on that show, and so they were like, all right, well, we're getting rid of this kid, and we're gonna kind of retcon it in and use it as the excuse to end this season up.
The only reason I disagree a little bit is because we did get, in the first episode of this season, we did get the flashback.
Yeah. But that was all post him being fired.
Oh, okay. So you think it was back just before the season started?
Yeah, when they were still filming and stuff like that. So yeah, I think so. I think that. That's just me speculating. I have nothing to base that on other than wild speculation.
Some of those rumors, speculation. Yeah, there's a little bit of weight to that because there was some drama around that. So, anyway, let us know what you think of any of these TV shows.
Wait. Before you go on, there's one more we have to talk about.
Oh, really?
Legion.
Oh, yes, we do have to talk.
We have to talk about Legion. Did you finally finish it?
Oh, I did finish it. I just felt I needed to rewatch it.
I've watched the full episode twice, and I've watched the dance off like 4 times.
Really?
I'm obsessed with that scene.
I thought it was good.
I thought it was insane.
Yeah.
I love the choreography. Like, I thought the choreography was really interesting, and like
because it's the telepaths fighting how they would,
and not only how, but like just the interpretation of like each of their personalities.
Right.
Like David's like so frenetic, and he's like fist pumping and like moving people into places and stuff, and then Jermaine Clement's character is much more fluid and kind of like groovy kind of a thing, and then Lenny's character is just like the Shadow King is just like sexy and manipulative and you know, using all like these like really suggestive images and stuff like that. I thought it was really well crafted, really interesting storytelling of like what and leaves you in typical Legion fashion going, what the hell is going on? Like, I don't understand any of this.
Yeah, that's where I like the show. It was really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. This show. It was a little bit more confusing because I'm not fresh out of season 1. I remember I watched a recap just to like sort of catch myself up before going into this episode, but I still felt kind of lost when I was watching.
Oh yeah, for sure. I rewatched season 1 with my wife, and going into season 2, I was like, what? You know, because they do the time jump, and all of a sudden you're in Division 3, and you're like, what happened? Like, it's really confusing.
To me, that was like the easiest part of it. Like, there is so much that is unstated right now. Like, I feel so like it, and this is a testament, I think, to how good the show is. I felt almost disoriented.
Yes, it's a great way. That's a great way to put it. Absolutely, I did too. And it doesn't help to watch it the second time. It's just as disorienting.
Yeah.
Of you're just like, wait, what? Wait, who is this general? And why does he have a basket on his head? Like, what the hell is going on?
I feel like I'd be a little bit more comfortable with this, and comfort is probably exactly the wrong word to use for a very intentional reason, because you're not supposed to be comfortable.
Yeah.
Which is again like a testament to the brilliance of the show. But the reason I'm not quite raving about this right now is because I don't even know what questions to ask. And
I will admit to like doing like Google searches of like, who is this character?
Right.
Like, is there somebody in comic books that like just some obscure character I'm completely
who wears
yeah, I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I don't.
Yeah.
And who is this guy? Like, we don't know. It feels like there's obviously another bad guy out there that's not the Shadow King.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of has to be that.
Well,
way.
Most certainly the bald guy with the red markings on his face.
Yeah,
is or the guy like the Hercule Poirot guy looking guy with the French mustache and the spectacles.
I'm just so lost.
Yeah, I'm like I remember having this feeling. I remember having this feeling in season 1 of just like, I don't what. Where are we going with, like, this is insane.
It is, but episode 1 for season 1 was a little bit more like, okay, like it established the world, and while there were lots of big questions, I had questions. Here I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I don't think even a teaser for episode 2 would help me at this moment.
Yeah, I well, I mean,
like it really feels like it just went over my head.
They're looking for the Shadow King, and they're trying to find his body. There's now a time travel element that's been introduced
for a
into
year,
the show.
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, for a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, not only that, but like, what's her name? Sid, when she comes back and is using the glow-in-the-dark magic wand. Yeah. That's Sid in the future.
Oh, what?
Did you not? See, you didn't catch that. Like, he says, like, oh, this. She draws when she draws. She's like, this is you, and then she draws the line, and that's her. Yeah. And he's like, oh, you're from the future. You're telling me this from the future, and that's when she gives him the message that about the Shadow King.
See, I don't know what's real and what's not with this show.
Well, there is that. There is
like,
that aspect as well.
That I was just like, okay, maybe, or maybe
she's
it's
like
just
having to be quiet because it's like something's hunting her, is what it feels like, and she knows that if, it's kind of like if she makes noise, and she's going to be found out and killed, kind of a deal.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch this episode.
Yeah, you do.
I really do.
It's good.
You know what? I'm so lost. I think you need to do the outro for us today.
All right. Well, if you have any thoughts or comments about what you think Legion might be about this season, feel free to drop us a line on all our regular social media. We check Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our webpage at certainpov.com. Feel free to hit us up there. And until
Time
next
travel,
week,
really?
huh?
Time travel?
Dude, you got to watch it. It's so good. Totally good. Hit us up at certainpov.com. And until next week, my friends, stay scruffy, my Nerf herders.